going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Well, today, September 24th, is my 18th birthday. And to officially celebrate becoming an adult, I'm gonna have to look back on all the stuff that I loved as a kid, aka the video games that I grew up with. I, like a lot of people my age, love video games. To me, they've always been an escape and a way to really enjoy myself. I've been a lover of all kinds of games, except first-person shooters, for all my life, and today we're going to be looking at my favorites from each year that I've been alive. You may have seen some people make their favorite music album from every year, or a favorite movie from every year, but I got this idea actually from a YouTuber called Cody Leach, so big shout out to him for the idea. Now, before we get into my list, obviously I haven't played every single game known to man. In fact, there's a whole lot that I haven't played. So even if one of the greatest games of all time came out one of these years, if I didn't personally like it, it's not going to be on my list. My list isn't the right list at all, and everybody's going to have a different game for each year. For me, I pick my games from these years based on nostalgia and how much I personally enjoyed them. So even if there's a game that's pretty sucky on here, if I loved playing it as a kid, it's going to be on this list. So there's going to be a whole lot of bias. Anyways, I hope you guys are ready for this video, and let's get right on into it. Now, we start off with the year that I was born, 2003. Now, obviously, I wasn't playing any games in this year, but the one that I played a lot when I was a kid, and is my favorite of this year, is SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. I was a huge Nickelodeon kid, and used to religiously watch SpongeBob every time it came on. I don't remember who got me this game, but I remember how I used to play SpongeBob the Flying Dutchman's Revenge on the PS2, and really enjoyed that one. So I'm assuming my parents got this one for me. I played this game constantly, and everything about it is just so nostalgic. The opening cutscene, the fantastic Bikini Bottom theme, the entire OST actually, and the gameplay wasn't that hard for a young kid like myself. Don't get me wrong, this game was very challenging, and I actually don't think I ever beat it since I didn't understand the puzzles. But even when I kept dying, I had so much fun. Which is a weird sentence, but whatever. The levels were all very unique, and just going through beating the crap out of robots going around was so much damn fun. I couldn't even begin to tell you how much I played Jellyfish Fields once I got out of school. I don't know why, but that was just my absolute favorite level. I never got tired of redoing it so many times. The game, of course, has some flaws, but I don't really care. It was just mindless fun for my younger self. You couldn't believe how happy I was to hear that this game was getting a remake, too. I unfortunately can't find an original PS2 copy of the game, but now I have the rehydrated version of my PS4, and it's just like how I remembered it. But this time I was actually able to see where I was going, not be stupid when it comes to finding puzzles, and actually beat the game. Karis and I got really into this version of the game, and it was nice to revisit some childhood memories with the new version of it. I really hope THQ Games can make some more remakes of these old SpongeBob games, and in particular some remakes on some more games that'll come later on in this list. If you guys haven't played this game and are into SpongeBob, please play it. I'd recommend the rehydrated version since it's the newest and fixes some bugs from the original, but if you want the authentic experience, the PS2 one is still a classic, and my favorite game for my birth year of 2003. This next year was actually kinda hard. I couldn't find any games that I played as a kid to be my favorites, but I actually narrowed it down to two games I played relatively recently, which were The Legend of Zelda The Minish Cap and Metroid Zero Mission. While I really did like both of these games, and I think they're both fantastic in their own rights, I'm gonna have to go with Metroid on this one. Now, my dad always told me to stay away from the Metroid games, as he played the first one and Super Metroid when he was growing up, and they were way too hard, so he knew I wouldn't like it. While I really do hate hard games, with Metroid Dread coming out, I really wanted to experience the first Metroid game that came out. Well, you know, the objectively better version of the first game, which is Metroid Zero Mission. I do remember us having a physical copy, but that's nowhere to be found either, so I just emulated it. And my god, this game is absolutely fantastic. From the moment I started playing it, I just couldn't put it down. The way Samus controls, the enemies, the level design, the abilities, and oh my god, the soundtrack, all of it is just pixel perfect. I love 2D games. This might be one of my favorites of all time, to be honest. It runs so good, and while it did take a while for me to get used to having to explore and use my head at some parts, this game was still an absolute blast to get through. I have no idea why I wasn't able to play this sooner than this year, but I'm so happy I did. It's a fantastic experience, and I hope the new Metroid is as good as this one. I couldn't really get into Metroid Samus Returns, so I just went back to this one, so I'm hoping that they can make the new one like this. I really hope I can get bored into the Switch too, since playing this on a big screen would be one hell of an experience. If you've never played a Metroid game before, please, for the love of God, play this one. It's technically the first game, and one hell of an adventure. I promise you'll have a good time if you're a fan of these Metroidvania types. Okay, now we're going to be going back to games I played when I was a kid. Now, remember when I said that I was a huge Nickelodeon kid? Well, the shows that I watched the most were SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, and Jimmy Neutron. I always watched these when they came on and loved them to pieces. I vividly remember one day I was at my mom's work just walking around and I wanted to go to the GameStop next door. So my grandma took me in to keep me occupied, and on one of the shelves was a game called Nicktoons Unite. Bro, my little head exploded. Seeing all of my favorite shows combined into one video game like this was such a huge deal. The only crossover I'd ever experienced was the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour, so including SpongeBob and Danny Phantom was such a huge deal to me. We immediately bought it, and once I got home, I played the absolute crap out of it. I swear, I think it was all I played for an entire year, and maybe more. Whenever my friends would come over, I would refuse to play anything else except this game, even though I knew there were so many other games they'd rather be playing. This one was just so special to me, and really still is to this day. I'm actually devastated right now, since I just dug it out to show off for this video, only to find out that the disc is missing. I have no idea where it could be, but I really hope I'm able to find it, because just writing about it makes me want to play it again. Just hearing all of the characters' voice actors talk among each other was like music to my ears.
They must have been ghosts! You know, Vlad's not the only one with a ghost portal.
You have access to another ghost portal?
It's nearby. Follow me.
And while the gameplay really does kinda suck with modern lens, I thought it was the best thing ever as a kid. And the ability to switch between all four characters at will was a foreign concept to me. And being able to do it on a whim was great. And while this is literally the most nostalgic game for me, I think I only ever beat it once. I think I was just so in love with it as a kid that I refused to finish it, and just replayed all the levels over and over and over again, that way it didn't have to end. Yeah, I was a weird kid. I also remember just watching the opening cutscene so many times and drawing comics about the four of them fighting alongside each other. It was so good. Now, this is a game that I desperately want THQ to remake, since I would buy every copy known to man. The Nicktoons Unite series actually got 3 sequels, so I think would make an excellent bundle on the PS4. Please make it happen, THQ. These games are my childhood. Now, while I think this one is actually the weakest out of all the Nicktoons Unite games, this one is my personal favorite since I played it so many times. I absolutely love this game to pieces, and I'm really hoping for a remake. So bad. Like I mentioned earlier, the Nicktoons series was in total 4 games, and they had different versions for different systems. I was able to get all the games on the PS2, and on the DS, since I just loved them so much. The next game I loved to play was Battle for Volcano Island, except I actually wasn't a huge fan of the PS2 version. Like, I liked it a lot too, but it was the DS version that reigned superior to me. Only because I played it so much. I got in trouble a lot as a kid with the PS2, since I would take it out and never unplug it and keep it running, so there were days that I wasn't allowed to play on it. But luckily my old school DS was super easy to put away, so I would play on that instead. This game was normally my go-to. Battle for Volcano Island DS was just a fantastic platformer for me as a kid, and it was the right blend of challenging and appealing for my little self. Even though Jimmy wasn't a playable character, we still had SpongeBob, Danny, and Timmy to control. And I'm telling you, I replayed this game so many times, going through so many different runs as all the characters, and being able to switch up my strategies in these levels themselves and the boss fights. I remember I tried speedrunning before I even knew what speedrunning was, and every single time I beat the game, I would just go back to the start and play it again. If you guys can't tell, the Nicktoons games meant a whole lot to me, and the first 2 in particular. I drew a lot of stories with these guys as well, and it was just such great memories. Plus, when I went to sleep at my grandma's house, I could take my DS and this game with me and play it there too, which is probably another reason why I loved it so much. I could play it wherever I went. Stay tuned, since there are a lot of DS games on this list, and this is one of the ones that I played the most as a little kid. And while I've seen people say this is the worst version of Volcano Island, this one will always have a special place in my heart. That's the last Nicktoons game on this list, but I really want to let you guys know that the Nicktoons Unite games were really awesome and totally shaped my childhood. If you guys want to check out the rest of the series, after Battle for Volcano Island, there's Attack of the Toy Bots, and after that, I'm pretty sure it's Globs of Doom. Again, they're both on the PlayStation 2 and on DS, as you can see right here. So, yeah, just want to let you guys know about that, and that's it for Nicktoons. Like I said before, I used to draw the Nicktoons characters all the time. And sure, they along with Dragon Ball characters were all I drew, my parents still saw me as a good artist and wanted to get me a game all about drawing. Luckily, my mom worked right next to a GameStop, so she was able to go in and find some games she thought I would like. The one she picked out was Drawn to Life Next Chapter. We'll get more into that in a little bit, but not to spoil things. Oh my god, that was such a fantastic game. And I found out that it was actually a sequel a while after. I mean, the next chapter should have tipped me off, but again, I was a stupid kid, so I didn't really realize. They didn't have the first one at GameStop, but I remember I went to the mall with my grandparents one time, and they had the Drawn to Life collection there, and I just had to go and snatch that one up for myself. There, I was finally able to experience Drawn to Life 1. This game was fantastic. Being able to draw your character into existence and draw the world around you was amazing, and it really helped me with my art, since I wanted to put as much detail into my drawings as I could. It was great. The gameplay was a great 2D side-scroller with an absolutely fantastic story. And I just loved the story and characters so much. Mary and Joey, Heather, the Mayor, Wilfrey, etc. All of them are great. Since I was playing this after the second one, this is basically me seeing how everybody started out, and staying in the Raposa village this time and getting to know all about the civilians that I would be saving in the second game. And unlike the second one, this one actually has a happy ending. And the only thing that makes me still feel really sad to this day is that technically my character who I created myself and helped with through the whole journey dies, since he walks off never to hang out with his friends, and then his mannequin gets killed off in the next game. That's really the only sad part about this ending, with hindsight. On the other hand, Mary and Joey got together, which was retconned in the next game, but they still did, and I always just love listening to the Drawn to You ending so much, since it was just a vocalized / remix version of the main theme, and even though it's a really cheesy song, I thought it was an absolute bop as a kid. And, sorry, still do to this day. I'll leave a link to the HQ version that was uploaded on YouTube. Please go listen to it. Drawn to Life is a fantastic game, and is really one of the first deep story-based games I ever played, and I'm really bummed that most people don't even know that this game exists, when it was such a huge part of my childhood. I was in an absolute riot when they announced a long-awaited third game, and while I haven't played it yet since I've heard it's nothing like the first or second one, I do still want to play it someday. But I really hope that they make a sequel to that one to continue the gameplay in a way that was so unique and fantastic about this one. It's a great game, music's absolutely great, listen to everything about it please, and yeah, please go play this game if you haven't, it's absolutely amazing. Now, this next game is something I know you guys are gonna like, Dragon Ball Origins. Of course, I've been a fan of Dragon Ball for literally my entire life, and the only game I ever had was Budokai on the PS2. And while that game was insanely fun, I also was a fan of the Dragon Ball manga, so I read the first arc over and over and over again. So you can only imagine my excitement when I went into the GameStop next to my mom's work and saw this on the shelf. For some reason, I remember wanting to get the second one first, but my grandma helped out my small brain self and had me just get the first one. This game was absolutely great, telling the story of the first two arcs of Dragon Ball, and incorporating some fantastic gameplay that fits perfectly with the tone of the original series. They had some great fights with bosses too, and one of the most memorable is the fight with Yamcha, where he gets an absolute kick-ass theme. I played this game a whole lot too, and I remember there was only one part I got stuck on for the longest time and was just never able to beat. It was one of the phases in the peel-off robot boss, and I just for the life of me couldn't figure out what to do. But a couple years later, when I had access to a laptop, I finally looked it up and just discovered I was supposed to spin around and absorb the lightning, and then I'd win. I have no idea why I was so stupid. While the later half of the game with training with Krillin and participating in the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament was still really fun, the whole hunt for the Dragon Balls portion was the main highlight of this game, and it managed to be super nostalgic. If you thought that the Yamcha theme was awesome, you just need to listen to the soundtrack as a whole. I swear, read the first 2 volumes of the manga and put on this OST in the background, and your reading experience will be 10 times elevated. The soundtrack just captures the vibe so well. The only downside with this game is the fact that it needs to be controlled with a stylus. If I could use button controls, then this game would easily be perfect, but unfortunately only stylus for this one. Luckily, they managed to fix that in Origins too, which didn't make it on this list, but it's still a fantastic game in its own right. I really wish we were able to get the Origins 3 to cap off the original Dragon Ball series, but hopefully we'll get a full remaster of the OG Dragon Ball, like how Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was for Z. But yeah, if you want to experience the first stories of Dragon Ball in a great video game way, then please play Dragon Ball Origins. It's a great game. It might be my favorite Dragon Ball game. It isn't a straight action one now that I think about it. Now we move on to what is actually my favorite game of all time. One that has stayed with me for years, and every time I replay it, it just keeps getting better and better. That being Drawn to Life, the next chapter. Like I said before, this game is so good. This game took everything the first game did and just dialed it up 1000%. Everything about it is way better than the first. The story, the characters, the drama, the levels, and the gameplay is fantastic. Especially once you can transform into a different creature to fulfill your needs of where to go. This was the first Drawn to Life game I played. But it's not just because I played it first that this one is better. No, it is definitively the better game. The story is so amazingly compelling that even a little kid me was hooked to it, even when all I cared about back then was gameplay. This was the game that made me love stories in games, and while the story is a 10 out of 10, the gameplay is as well. Everything is such a natural evolution of the first. Everything your hero can do, the way the levels are formatted, and the stellar soundtrack going on in the background. You can even draw vehicles and more equipment than ever before to help you out, and while the game is much harder than the first, especially a giant Robosa boss, it's still so fun. I'm telling you, I replayed this game so much, and every time I did, I always hated having to go back and fight the giant Robosa, since it was just so hard. He hit hard, had multiple phases, and no matter what I always did, I died at least 10 times before I could ever beat him. The other bosses aren't too bad, and the final boss is, in my opinion, the best final boss I've ever fought and beaten in a video game. Mostly the first phase for gameplay, and the second phase for story. Before I get into why, I need to spoil the end of this game hard. So, gigantic spoilers here. So, the big twist about this series is that the whole world between the two games was revealed to be a dream, being had by the only human in the world, Mike. When I first experienced the ending, I was in complete shock and didn't get it at first. And once I did, I started bawling my eyes out, like, really hard. It all made sense, why Mario was acting so weird the whole game, why Wilfrey was actually a hero somewhat, and why Heather kept yelling an anagram of Wake Mike the whole time. I was traumatized by this one, and evidently I wasn't the only one, since in the Drawn to Life collection, they changed the ending to be much less brutal than the original, where Mike just fell out of a tree and went into a coma for 5 seconds. And I gotta say, that ending just sucks and completely undermines the whole story. Luckily, I have the original game which shows the real definitive ending. The real ending is that one day, Mike, his sister Heather, and their parents were driving home in the rain from a carnival, got into a terrible car accident, and the parents died, while Mike and Heather were extremely injured. Heather got half of her face torn off, and Mike was put into a coma. How dark is that for a children's game about drawing? The song Real Life that plays at the end is so beautiful too, and is so much better than the ending song for the first game, but it makes me feel so depressed to listen to it. The dream was made up of things from the real world, how the creator was meant to be God, Mari and Joey were just dolls we got from the fair, and how Heather's half-shadow face is really how she looked in the real world. Wilfrey's goal in the game was to make it so that Mike never woke up, so that way they could continue to exist, since he didn't want to die and didn't want his world to disappear with him. That's why I said the final boss is my favorite of all time. First, when Wilfrey actually manages to kill you, and you come back to life in the most hype moment of gaming. And then the pain I felt when knowing that defeating Wilfrey would cause the whole world to end, and for everybody I made friends with to just fade away from existence, since they never really existed in the first place. How deep is that? It is a game that has stuck with me forever, and I just love it so much, even though the ending is so painful to get through. It's so powerful though, especially for a DS game. We need a compilation on the Switch or something, and hopefully they include the darker ending. This is my absolute favorite game of all time, and I want to keep talking about it, but you need to go and play it now and experience it for yourself. It's an amazing journey, and I really hope they continue to make new Drawn to Life games soon, since they're all just so damn good. Alright, next up is a game that isn't a sobfest, but one that is a seriously great game. You guys want a good version of Sonic Colors Ultimate? Then just buy the DS version. This game was great, and my favorite of this year. You guys know I love Sonic, and I always played the classic collection on my DS, and I also played Sonic Rush, which was great as well. Never played Rush Adventure, but I played the sequel to it, which was the Colors DS version. This game was exactly the high-speed action that Little Damon wanted. Rush was fast, but for some reason this one made Sonic go so much faster, and I loved it. Being able to run through this whole game and speedrun it, listen to its fantastic music, and interact with a bunch of Sonic characters was so much fun. I got sick quite a lot when I was little, and this is the game that I played all the time when I was sick, since for some reason it just made me feel better. Something about running Sonic around through the Wisp world really helped me get better, I guess. The half-pipes, I think, are the best special stage ever in a Sonic game that I've ever played personally. The half-pipe was amazing and had so much fluid control to compare to that of Sonic 2, so I loved it. Getting the Chaos Emeralds was so dope in this game, and the only thing that ticked me off was that I could never find the last one. I looked everywhere but just couldn't find it, so I never was able to actually beat the game. I just replayed all the other stages a bunch instead. It was only very recently that I found out they needed to go to the game land and race against a CPU to get the last one. Still haven't done it yet, but I guess I need to now to finally beat the game. After hearing how terrible the remaster of the console Sonic Colors was, I'm just gonna stick to the superior DS version, and you should try it out if you haven't, since it's a great 2D-ish Sonic game. Now, while I may have neglected the Zelda game for 2004, this time I'm going to actually be picking one. That one being Skyward Sword. Now, I understand the hate behind this game. I really do. The controls do suck ass sometimes, and there are plenty of moments where I raged out due to misinputs. But besides those, this is a fantastic Zelda game. With the new HD remaster, it seems it's in a new light now. But I'm just going to be focusing on the Wii original. Skyward Sword, I think, has the perfect cast of characters, and the world is massive and full of life and charm. I love the iteration of Link and Zelda in this game the most, as the two have so much character to them, and being able to follow along with them through the whole story is such a treat. Link has so much personality, and his facial expressions always make me laugh. The others, especially the Giga Chad Groose, are extreme highlights, and he is the best character in the whole series. Sorry not sorry. Now, the world itself is so colorful and lifelike, which is the reason I love it even more. So many 3D Zelda games are really dark in their scenery, and this one just has a fantastic art style that makes the whole world look more and more alive. The enemies here are hit or miss, literally sometimes, but they're just fodder in the end and didn't impact my enjoyment of the game most of the time. Some baddies make me want to throw the whole remote through the TV sometimes, and I gotta say, this game is really hard. Definitely not a walk in the park. This game is also very long, as you can go through a lot of places many times and feel like you're getting nothing done, so that feels like it can be a drag. Overall though, I think this is a very competent Zelda game, and I'm glad it's getting more love now with the HD remaster. Apparently that one has button controls too. I might have to pick that one up someday so I can play the game in a way that doesn't cramp my hand to death. Oh yeah, the Loftwing just sucks so. Easily the worst part of the game, and it can go die. But besides that, this is a pretty good game, and my favorite of 2011. Okay, now we're moving into the dark stuff. For some reason around 2012, I got really into zombies, and while I never wanted to watch The Walking Dead, I really wanted to play the Walking Dead game for some reason. It was just something that seemed fun about a story-based zombie game. I began to play it and instantly fell in love. It's an absolute perfect game. The depressing story captivated me so hard, and the fact that the game was tailored to how I played, meaning I could affect the story through my decisions, was just so great to me. And it made me feel like I was actually making an impact on the game. I hated seeing those who I had grown close to die around me, and I tried to do everything in my power to keep everybody else alive. I grew so close to everybody, especially the two main characters, Lee and Clementine. Oh my god. I love these two. As Lee, I felt so bad for what he had to go through as his family becoming walkers, having to basically be a leader, and then stepping up as a new father figure to Clementine. Clem was so cute, and I wanted to do everything in my power to protect her, at all costs. That's why the ending hit me so hard, when I forced her to shoot me, that way I didn't turn to a walker as well. I, of course, bawled my eyes out to this as well. Not just Lee and Clem either, as Kenny, Katja, Duck, Ben, Carly, all of them are great characters. I hated to see them die in such depressing ways. And the fact that out of everybody in the original group, Clem was the only one to make it in this game hit hard too, since I just wanted her to be safe and didn't know what would happen to her next. While I know that Kenny lived to be in the next game, I didn't know that then, so having everybody but Clem bite it was so depressing, and made me love the game so much. It's a very depressing game, but I still love it so much for keeping me so compelled with the main characters, and giving a 10 out of 10 story. This is the best season in the Walking Dead game, no contest, and I hope that Telltale Games can come back one day and continue to make fantastic stories like this one. Alright, let's step away from depressing now and show off a super awesome Nintendo RPG. That being Mario & Luigi Dream Team. Now, I know that most people really hate this one and prefer literally any other Mario RPG, but this one was my very first Mario & Luigi game, and I think it's great. The atmosphere, the way Mario and Luigi have great personality, the unique setting, it's all just fantastic. I remember I played this a bunch in the mornings before I had to go to school in the winter, and it was just so nice sitting in the window, watching it snow, and playing this game. It had such a Christmas vibe to it, you know? The whole being able to go into the dream world and control so many different Luigis was awesome, and I just loved how much imagination was put into this game. The one thing I hated about it though was that giant Bowser boss fight we had in the dream world, since I couldn't beat it for the longest time. I tried for around a month to beat him, and I was just trash at the game so I couldn't do it. But hey, once I did, I felt like $1,000,000. I love those moments where you beat a super hard boss and after so long you just finally do it. Then finally beating the game and fighting a super dope Dreamstone-infused Bowser is awesome as well. I don't know, this game was just really charming, and exploring Pillow Island and Luigi's dreams is a great way to spend the holidays back in 2013. The soundtrack's dreamlike charm was so good too, and I know this might be a hot take, but I think the OST is one of the best in the Mario & Luigi series. Probably not as good as Bowser's Inside Story, but a close second at least. I love the Mario & Luigi series, and even though Alpha Dream's gone now, I really hope Nintendo will still continue to make more, since they're some of the best pieces of Mario we've ever gotten. 2014 was the year that every kid around my age had their obsessive finance of Freddys Craze, and I was no exception. The first FNAF game was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever experienced, and I was plagued by nightmares of the animatronics all the time, but for some reason, I still loved to play the game. I don't know what's wrong with me since I was scared out of my mind and screamed so loud whenever I was jump scared, but I loved it. But then, once the second game came out, that changed everything. Second game, I think, is the best in the series, and I was just obsessed with this one so much more than the first. I was so hyped when the release date was coming, and I couldn't contain my excitement. When it first came out, I was scared even more, as the old animatronics scared me even more than the first one. The toy animatronics never really scared me all that much, but the withered ones were just terrifying. I played this one all Christmas long, and of course, I had nightmares about this as well. Especially since the story of this one was just so messed up. The fact that there was a purple guy killing kids, stuffing their bodies into suits, and all the animatronics wanted to do was get their revenge on the killer, that was so messed, but really interesting. In fact, after learning the story, I actually was more scared of the purple guy than the animatronics for a time, since he was just a psycho who killed kids, and I was a kid, so I was terrified. The one thing that scared me the most though besides Purple Guy was Withered Chica for some reason. The way she stands above you at like 8 feet tall, her dead eyes, her broken jaw, and no hands, still scares the crap out of me to this day. And besides Springtrap, Withered Chica is the animatronic that scares me the most. The game was such an improvement from the first, and being involved in the community at the time was so much fun. As we could all speculate what exactly was going on, and I got to see so much cool fan art, fan games, YouTube animations, Gmod FNAF games, and all that fun stuff. The things I was a fan of, nobody was talking about, but since everybody was talking about this game, I finally had people to talk to about something that I liked, and I think just being in an amazing community at the time was what is pushing this game up for me too, since without this game, I wouldn't have all those great memories of how much everybody was invested in this series. Still f***ing hate Withered Chica though. This year really pissed me off, since two of my favorite games came out during this year. And, well, Undertale was such a great game and an experience in and of itself. Life is Strange was just an experience. This is my second favorite game of all time, and oh my god, I just can't put into words how much this game really changed my life and how much I love it. I can try though. First off, Max Caulfield is my favorite protagonist ever, since she just reminds me of me in so many ways. I've never felt like that much of a connection with a fictional character before. Plus, she has time travel powers, which is just so dope, and I love time travel so much, so a whole story-based game based around it was an instant reason to buy. If you guys can't tell, this game changed me as a person, and my sense of style. Play this game, and then when you look at Hipster Damon, it'll all make sense. All of the characters are perfect. And sure, there are video essays about how much Chloe sucks, but she just reminded me of an old best friend I used to have, and how much time we spent together before the other one had to leave, and how much I missed hanging out with them. The way everything unfolded, with Max discovering she could go back years through photos, and a twist of Mr. Jefferson being the killer, just struck. Not to get too personal, but there are a lot of beats to this game that seem to match my own life, and I think that's why it hit me so personally, since it connected with me so much. All 5 episodes, I think, are masterpieces, and I can play this game over and over and over again, and still love it, each and every playthrough. I also think this game has the best soundtrack ever. I love this soundtrack so much. I normally don't buy gaming soundtracks physically, but this one I just couldn't resist. I love it way too much. I put it on in the car sometimes when I'm just driving around, and it's something else, let me tell ya. Like, to me, this isn't really a game, it's an experience. And ever since it came out, it's been this game and Drawn to Life the Next Chapter that are competing for my favorite game. Seriously, it depends on the day, and I can say either one or the other. The ending of this game made me cry the hardest I've ever cried in a video game. The choice between Chloe and Arcadia Bay. And what I chose just broke me, and I couldn't hold in my tears. It's just such a beautiful experience, and so heart-wrenching, and oh my god, I love it so much. No other Life is Strange game will ever make me feel the way this one did, and to be honest, I don't think any other game will ever make me feel the way this one made me feel. I love it, and I'm totally buying the remaster when it comes out, so I can cry HD tears. Again, I could talk about this game and everything in it all day, but we'd be here for a very long while. So, let's move on before the storm of love I have all pours out. This next pick is actually a game I very recently started playing, but one that I think is so much fun. That is Dead by Daylight. Karis and I started playing it once I was down after my wisdom teeth, and my god, it is so much fun. Real quick, only as a survivor though. I tried to beat a killer once, and I sucked, but as a survivor, it is always so much fun. Constantly running and hiding in fear of who is going to be the killer this time, or if they're going to find you, just put you through so much anxiety and so much adrenaline that it's so much fun. I love when the random people that we play with online are cool too. I've had a couple matches that were so much fun. One in particular where all 4 of us helped each other one time and we all somehow managed to escape the killer at the last second, and that was amazing. And then that one time where I was the only one left and I managed to keep running away from the killer guy for a whole 15 minutes, that he thought it was hilarious and he was impressed that he just led me to the manhole cover and let me escape through there. It was awesome. All of the different killers we fight are awesome too. Some can be extremely annoying like Pyramid Head and Michael Myers, but there are so many that are just fun to fight with. And even though I just got into it, it's already a super amazing game, and I just can't stop playing it. I've been playing it for over a month at this point, and we still haven't gotten every map and every killer yet. So there's so much more to do, and it's such a fun time. Go play it if you haven't, it's so much fun. Like I said for the Sonic Colors DS section, I loved playing the Classic Collection on my DS, and I always wanted another good 2D Sonic game like 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles. And in 2017, we finally got it. Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania was such a love letter to all the fans of classic Sonic, and it was just such an experience to play it, having such flow in the gameplay, seeing which old stages would come back, seeing how awesome the new stages would be, and all the amazing enemies, and the soundtrack that would come with them was a gigantic treat. Since I'm a huge Sonic fan, being able to pick up on all the cool references to the other games was such a huge nerd moment. I absolutely lost my mind when Knack the Weasel from the Archie comics / Triple Trouble randomly came in, and when I saw Bean and Bark as well. I loved the Archie comics, so seeing all those guys return was amazing. Having Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel finally come back after disappearing 25 years ago was such a treat in the encore version. And bro, the soundtrack was boppin'. There was so many bangers in here. And I gotta say, the Hard Boiled Heavies theme and Metallic Madness Act 2 were my favorites. And I love jamming out to that music every now and then. Sonic Mania was a great love letter to all of the classic Sonic fans, and I really hope Sega realizes that soon, so we can get some good 2D Sonic action again, and not stuff like Sonic Forces. Please Sega, I'm begging you, make Mania 2. My third favorite game of all time came out this year, and that is Marvel's Spider-Man. I remember I was so hyped for this when it came out, as I think I got it like on launch day, and it was the first time I ever got a game at launch, so I was mad excited. I immediately booted it up, and the instant that Live from the Warbly Jet started playing, I knew this game was going to be spectacular. And, oh my god, it lived up to the hype. I'm not gonna be like, ooh, this game makes it feel like Spider-Man. But like, my favorite thing to do in this game is just swing around and check out New York as Spider-Man. And New York is so beautiful in this game. My favorite thing to do while swinging was put on a remix of the Spectacular Spider-Man theme and just swing away, fight bad guys, and jam. It was just so much fun and really hyped up my Spider-Mania. I've always loved Spider-Man. I used to watch a cartoon, watch all the Sam Raimi movies, and lost my shit when I saw he was gonna be in Civil War. So when I was playing this game, it just made me so happy because I finally got to experience Spider-Man while playing as him. I never played any of the old PS2 games, but I'm glad I started with having nothing to compare this one to, and this game is just so hype all the way through. The combat is great, and sure, it can get a little repetitive after a while, but for me that wasn't much of an issue, as I just love putting together a bunch of cool combos to use on the bad guys, and see what kind of combos I could put together. The boss fights were cool too, and the inclusion of the Sinister Six was fantastic, even though the Doc Ock reveal was obvious since, like, come on, it's Doc Ock. Having Miles in it was awesome too, and while I did hate his and MJ's stealth sections, I did really like their characters in game and liked every character in the game, as the story really hangs on all of them just talking and it all works so well. This Peter Parker / Spider-Man is my favorite iteration of him yet. The way he fights, the way he quips, the way he interacts with the world around him, he's just a perfect friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Oh, and you know the pigeon guy from the game? That's Lee from The Walking Dead. Spider-Man knows Lee. How amazing is that? All the side characters like him are awesome, since the little people you help in the game are all interesting, and contrast what actual New Yorkers are actually like. The suits here are all fantastic, and I 100%ed this game to get them all, since, I don't know, I just needed to see Spider-Man in his undies, I guess. My favorite suit to use the whole game was the Ben O'Reilly suit, as even though I never read the Clone Saga, this suit just looked so badass. The only thing I really hated in this game was Screwball and all of her challenges, as they all just pissed me off. And she's the literal most annoying character ever. I really hope they keep her out of the next game, which, you know I'm gonna be playing. I'm so excited for that. This game is just so much fun, and it's one of the only games I've gotten all the trophies in, even the City That Never Sleeps DLC. It's such an amazing game, and if you haven't played it yet, please go and check it out. It's totally worth it. I'm so excited to see what Insomniac Games can do in the future with Marvel games, especially with Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. Now, even though none of the other games managed to end up on this list, I'm such a huge fan of Kingdom Hearts, and I, like a whole lot of other people, were way beyond hyped for Kingdom Hearts 3, and when it finally came out in 2019, for me personally, it lived up to the hype. This game is basically the culmination of everything this series has built up since like 2002, and I'm glad I played everything so I understood everything that was actually going on in this game. Most of my complaints are actually not centered on the gameplay, as I think it's the best in the entire series. The way that I can just float around and move so fast, killing everything in my sight, and combine my Keyblade with unique movesets that I get from the other worlds, and my magic, it's just so cool. Combat is the most fun thing in this game, and I just can't get over how much fun it is to go around and kill everything no matter what world you're in. Being able to swap characters sometimes is super hype too, as playing as Riku and even Aqua that one time was so hype, especially in the DLC, when I got to play as Roxas on console finally, and then as Kairi, and even Mickey. It was so dope. Now, I think my negative with this game really comes down to the story. I really wasn't a fan of the story until the end. I like going around to the Disney World since the gameplay was so much fun, but the story there itself was just like a what if Sora wasn't frozen and nothing changes except Sora is photocopied in. I think that the stories for most of the Disney Worlds are awful, except for maybe Olympus and San Francisco. I was just waiting for it to shift back to Riku and Mickey's story of trying to find Aqua the whole time. There are some nice story beats in there, like in some of the Disney Worlds, like when Woody steps up to young Xehanort, Mike and Sully murdering Vanitas, and Sora having a memory of Roxas and his friends. But the story itself doesn't really get good until the endgame, and man, it is so good once we hit the ending. The final chunk of this game, I think, is perfect, and is what I wanted the whole game to be. But it is a giant chunk of the game, so I'm not faulting it at all. It's great, especially when they expanded upon it in the DLC, it was fantastic. Having pretty much all the characters come back from the other games and unite and finally take out Xehanort and the True Organization 13 was amazing. And as a Kingdom Hearts fan, it was just so amazing to see. Didn't give me Avengers Endgame levels of crossover hype, but close to it for Kingdom Hearts. I really can't wait until Kingdom Hearts 4, where hopefully they can expand upon the gameplay further and give us a story that's fantastic all the way through. Don't play this game if you haven't played any of the other Kingdom Hearts games, as you won't understand anything, but I do recommend you play it at some point once you understand the story. This is such a fun game, and one of my favorite Kingdom Hearts games.
My friends are my power!
Now, another game I grew up playing was Dragon Ball Z Budokai on the PS2, and I just loved that game, and was so bummed that it only ended at the Cell Saga, as I really wanted to keep playing up until Boo. I never got the other Budokai games since I just couldn't afford it, but there was always that part of me that wanted the full Dragon Ball Z story in one game. Well, I was keeping up with the Dragon Ball Project Z game that became Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and thought it looked like a modern-styled Xenoverse with that Budokai-like nostalgia. And as much as I wanted it, I needed it instantly once I saw this.
なんだてめえは。
私は悪は絶対許せない正義の味方グレートサイヤマンだ
I lost my absolute shit at that. Then as more trailers came out showing stuff such as Vegito, I needed it instantly, and once I got it, I loved it. Real quick, I was actually pretty pissed since I bought it on Super Bowl Sunday and my family made me watch a football game with them, and I was just twitching the whole time wanting to play this instead. Once I finally got to, though, I was blown away. Playing as so many different characters and getting the story of Dragon Ball Z in a different way with some RPG elements, and so much side content to make even a hardcore Dragon Ball Z fan like me see the story in a whole different way was great. Playing through the Saiyan through Cell arc was fantastic, and while it was nice to explore that again, the main thing that I wanted was the Buu arc, since, as you guys know, that was my favorite arc in the entire series. And dude, I nearly cried the moment that they played the Prologue 2 theme, as We Gotta Power is my favorite Dragon Ball song of all time, and I nearly burst into tears once they played this.
Rivals unite against Majin Buu.
Playing through the Buu Saga for the first time on a Dragon Ball Z console game just fueled younger Damon's desire to see past the Cell arc and Budokai, and I can tell they put the most effort into the Buu Saga portion of the game, and going through it all was such an experience. The data battles in this one, where I got to fight all the old villains at their max, was so tough but so much fun, and just every battle in the game was great, especially the new character Banyu, who was super interesting in her fighting style. The fact that they got all the voice actors from the show to reprise their roles for like the millionth time was so great too, as it really did feel like I was experiencing the show again in a format that I love, which is through a video game. The game is such a blast and an experience for Dragon Ball fans. The DLC was fantastic too. I've only played the Battle of Gods portion and about half of the history of Trunks, but from what I've played, it's fantastic. The Battle of Gods and Resurrection F inclusion in this game was so dope, as technically they were Z products before being put into Super. I hope we can get a sequel game once Dragon Ball Super has enough arcs that they can use, as that would be great. Anyways, this is a fantastic game, and please, for the love of God, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, go and play it. Now we come to the final game on this list. Now, while this year is still incomplete and this game might change, right now, the best game of this year, I think, is one that came out only a week ago. That being Deltarune Chapter 2. I may have excluded Undertale on this list, but even though that game wasn't on here, it is still one of the best games I've ever played, and Deltarune Chapter 1 just came out of nowhere as a sequel to Undertale, and I was so excited to play it, and I loved it. I was eagerly waiting for Chapter 2 to come, and it never did, until last week. Again, this one also came out of nowhere, and I was so excited. I played the whole thing at launch, and now I'm going to be giving another big spoiler warning since we're going to talk about some spoilers and stuff in this, so if you haven't played it yet and don't want to be spoiled, come back later. I didn't expect this chapter to be this good. I really thought that we'd just be going around the real world the whole time, but returning to the Darkner world and meeting all the new quirky characters was such a treat. Getting more insight on Rousey, getting Noelle and Birdly to be hilarious was awesome, the gameplay was great again, and the punch-out battles I thought were hilarious and a great change of pace from the normal gameplay. Queen was obviously the best character. Her dialogue, her theme, just everything she did was the funniest thing to me, and I loved it.
The banana, Chris! The banana! Chris! Get it! Get it! The banana! Get it, banana!
It was just a blast and so much fun to go through. I died laughing when Rousey got crushed twice, and him and Susie doing the Charlie Brown dances while Chris was doing some TF2 looking dance instantly made my day. The real world was great, and talking with all the characters from Undertale, especially Sans, was the best thing ever. The fact that we got his theme music and went to the shop just made me so happy, since I love that theme so much. I'm really interested in what Chris is doing, though, since he keeps ripping out his soul and doing some weird opening portals and shit in the living room. So I'm hoping to get an explanation as to why they're doing all that. Anyways, this game was a huge delight. I love the Undertale / Deltarune series, and I hope we don't have to wait 3 years until the next chapter. By the way, I only played Pacifist and not like Snowgrave or whatever, because like I don't like killing people. And that is the whole list. If you guys are still here, thank you all so much for checking this video out. It was super awesome to go and have a look back on some of my favorite games ever, and being able to gush about them to all of you. This was a very personal and fun video to write, and I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on a bunch of old games that I used to play, and how my personality was shaped by them. If you want to share your list, please do. I would totally love to read all of your guys' favorite games whenever you've been alive. Write down in the comment section down below. Well, now it's time to go and celebrate being an adult, I guess. But anyways, thank you all so much for going through this journey with me, as all of you guys are fantastic. So, until we meet again, guys. See you later.